If you're ready to experience more peace and joy in your life, if you want to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and if you're ready to discover and expand on your energetic gifts and personal power, you're in the right place. So here's your host, Kelle Sparta.
Welcome back to Spirit Guides. I'm your host, Kelle Sparta, transformational shaman and spiritual coach. I am here, as always, on Mondays with Joshua Radewan, spiritual coach, and who specializes in working with the paranormal community. So we are talking today about, is there a fast track to enlightenment? And so I'm excited to get onto that story. But before we go there, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to send in your reviews. The review has to come in with it has to be a written review, not just a star review. Take a screenshot of it before you submit it and send it to support@kellesparta.com if you would like to win a reading for the Friday Ascend programs. And so we're doing those periodically. So if that's something you would like, go ahead and do that. And we would love to see it. Also, if you have a question, please send it in. We are happy to answer questions for you. You can do that either by sending an email to Kelle@kellesparta.com, or you can go to the spiritguidespodcast.com and put in a verbal message using the SpeakPipe Ask a Question thing there. Okay? So looking forward to hearing from you. Yes. All right. So today's question is there a fast track to enlightenment? And the answer to that is yes. So episode done. Yeah.
We're done. You're enlightened. Move on with your lives in your highest vibration. You are now one with the universe. That's the kind of change we offer.
Okay, so yeah, all right, yeah. Funny aside, although not because I can't help myself. Anyway, the upshot though is yes, there is a faster path versus a slower path, and you know the more I have been sitting with this, because you know there are stages that you go through in spiritual journeys, right? And we've talked about the stages of enlightenment and things like that. But what I'm realizing, 50 years into my process here, is that ultimately it all comes down to how much can you let go and how much can you allow yourself to be the amazing creator that you are, right? And I talked about this in the ethics one, where we were talking about letting everybody be who they are and not trying to manipulate the outside world and focusing on yourself and things like that, because that is the path to enlightenment, is focusing on yourself. You can't control the outside world. You can only control yourself. And so, but there are two paths, right? There's the masculine path and the feminine path. And I think we've talked about this a little bit already, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. The masculine path is the path of the light. It's in the yin yang. It's the white in the yin yang, and the feminine path is the black in the yin yang. We've got the path of enlightenment in terms of stripping away everything, right? Which is what we learn in most of our traditions here, is strip away all your limiting beliefs, all your stuckness, all your blah blah blah, until you become nothing and you become one with everything, right? It's the death of the ego. That's the path for that. The feminine path is great mystery. It's done in the darkness. It's not something you understand with your head, right? It is something that you experience. It is a beingness state. It is not a doingness or a thinkingness state. It is a beingness state. It is the part of yourself that is connected to the earth. And we do this through our bodies. And so I find a lot of times when I'm working with people in the spiritual world, the very first thing they do is they try to transcend their body, because their body is holding so much trauma, right? And so they're trying to leave their bodies, get up and out, up and out, up and out, have mystical experiences and stay out of their bodies, right? And I'm like, no, you're on the planet for a reason, and your body is the conduit between the earth and sky. And it is the place in which we connect into the physical reality. And so long as you are trying to leave your body, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have, you're going to have a hard time being effective. You're going to have a hard time making money. You're going to have a hard time establishing, things on the planet, having things go forward for you on the planet. Well, you're going to have a hard time with your physical health. You're going to have hard time with a lot of things because you are not embodied, right? And so when we talk about enlightenment, the feminine path, which is this great mystery path, is the path of experience. It's about accepting and receiving without judgment, with compassion, everything, all that is, until you become everything and you become one with everything, right? And then the ultimate path to full enlightenment is to do both the masculine and the feminine at the same time and have it not be a paradox. Okay? So, when you think about it from this perspective, the first challenge people have when they transition out of the masculine and into the feminine is they go looking for the light switch. They try to understand it. And you cannot understand an experience. You have to have an experience. It's different, right? There is no light switch. Stop trying to make your head work it. It is not a head-based experience. It is a body-based experience. And so you can't analyze and understand your experience until you first have it. And for many people, that is the biggest stumbling block to getting into this part of the work, is that they try to understand and analyze it before they have it. And therefore they don't have it because they're up in their heads trying to figure out what it is before they have experienced it. Okay? So when we talk about ways to accelerate enlightenment, the ways, part of it is understanding the structure, right? And that's what I try to give you here, right? I try to explain to you, how these things work, what the stages are, what the evolutionary process is, how it operates, and so on, right? So part of it is that. Part of it is being able to address the individual issues that keep you stuck, right? And that's what we do in our programs, right? So we do that and we work with people on shifting your perspective, because that's another piece of it, is shifting your perspective. If you see the world as a dangerous place, if you see yourself as a horrible person, if you see the people around you as people trying to take advantage of you, then you're going to experience that, because what you expect is what you draw to you, right? What you focus on is what you create, right? Or what expands. We say this at the end of every episode. So, shifting your perspective and starting to see the world differently is a huge and important piece of the journey. And then the bringing in of gratitude is another huge piece of the journey. If you want to accelerate your track in enlightenment, bring in gratitude, because gratitude actually is it's a jumpstart, it's a turbocharge, right, of your spiritual enlightenment, because gratitude does multiple things at once if you are fully sitting in it when you do it. And so if you're in gratitude, you are saying there is more than enough, right? Look at all the things that I have. Look at all the experiences that I have. Look at how awesome I am. I'm grateful for me. I'm grateful for those around me. I'm grateful for what I have in my experience. I'm grateful for the world. I'm grateful for air and water and whatever, right? And so when you are in that state, you are in the abundance mindset. You are in the connection to the all that is, because you are acknowledging that everything is there for you, okay? And so the next piece of gratitude is that you are not in a lack state, right? Which a lot of us spend a lot of time in a lack state because any of the media that we consume is generally telling us why we should be miserable and unhappy, right? And so it's very easy, especially on social media, to just get swept into the lack state. Oh, the economy sucks, or oh, everybody's poor, or oh, inflation is out of control, or oh, blah, 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 right? And, it's just fear mongering, and it's, it's just for clicks, right? So when we're in gratitude, we're not in lack. And that's the other piece that's super important about it. But gratitude inherently is I already have this. So we're also in full manifestation. Because when you focus on things you already have and how amazing what you already have is, you create more amazing things you already have. Right? It is a manifestation state. And so that is a supercharger for your enlightenment track. Now, the other piece is to not run away from the things that you fear. learn how to face your fears in a way that is sustainable and healthy, not like we talked about last time. But in a way that is sustainable and healthy, you want to be able to face your fears, and you want to be able to take action on your desires, right? When you spend a lot of time in wishing never happens. You must take action. So if you want to have a fast track to enlightenment, you have to take action on what it is that you desire. And so, in the case of enlightenment, that would be enlightenment, right? It's like, I'm going to do what it takes to get, when I see something that is limiting me, I will burst through that in some fashion. I will find a way, throw it around it or under it or over it or whatever, right? And so that's another fast track for enlightenment piece. And so, you've got these stages, and, we talked about doing them in order. That's another good pathway, right? Is so, the last episode we talked about, do your clear the decks mentally to create that bandwidth for change. And then the second one is the, solidify your sense of self in your energetic container, and then do your shadow work. If you do things in order, you save a lot of time, right? The other thing that can help you accelerate your path is doing energy work in addition to personal growth work, because we often think of enlightenment as a personal growth process, but it's actually an energetic process. And that energetic process is a process of working with your energy field to clear the same blocks that you're working with on the mental, emotional level, so that you're now accelerating that process by doing both at the same time, right? So, Josh, I have to acknowledge that something is happening here for you, because I'm watching your eyes close. It's almost like you're falling asleep. It's interesting, because when I see that happen for people, what it usually means is my brain is full.
Oh, it is. I mean, I'm going through this stage, I'm actually going through it simultaneously, right? On the masculine side, I really feel like a lot of what I had built my identity around is being stripped away in some ways. And, having the Kundalini experience that I talked about a few episodes back, I'm still very much, going through what that meant to me to understand the feminine. And that's the thing, is you can't. Right? That's the paradox is, you can't. And that's where I struggle at this point. I mean, that's just the reality of where I'm at right now, and it's okay. Also, while you were saying that, I was getting a bunch of tingles around my head, and I was trying to, just to make sense of all that. So that is part of it. It's a process, right? And it's because we fight it and we resist it. That's the huge part for me, is I'm still very much, in that masculine part of wanting to understand and to some level control what's going on, right? Because I still don't, I guess the thing I struggle with is, what exactly is an enlightened creator, right? This is what I'm trying to understand, right? Do I have to let go of things I don't want to let go of? Do I, right? If I am a creator, and I am creating my reality every day, every morning I wake up, and every thought and every intention, do I have to let go of the things that I love sometimes? So this is where I get stuck. But it's and we talked about this, in the shadow work piece too. And that you say there's easier paths, and absolutely, I can see a bunch of them, but it's in the depths of that deeper level eviscerating shadow work that I come to some of my most profound realizations, and where a lot of the content I create comes from. And that makes the path easier for other people. Now, am I attached to my own suffering in this? Fucking probably, maybe a little, but it's in these places. It's where I write books. It's where I write from. And I was just recently talking to another brother on the spiritual path as well, and he was saying the same thing. And I was like, God, I want to opt out of that energetic myself, because this is it's a deep level process. Getting to that point where the two energies are, moving together in and out. It's a lot, and this is where the stillness you talk about comes in, right? The being able to be in the beingness, which is, you know how I operate. I am very much in the doingness of life and have been for 39 years, right?
Yeah.
So dropping, and it's about, for me, like the way I perceive it, and I had some work done. It's like I saw the infinity symbol from head to heart, right? And to me, like the masculine is so much the head, right? Like we are tacticians, we are, not saying that we all both don't carry these, within us, but the tactician, the logic, the trying to figure things out, and the more feminine aspect of the nature is being through the heart, right? And this is what it's been for me, is learning to balance these two energies, right? And dropping my consciousness into my heart more, which I'm getting, like, because I'm putting myself through this level of shadow work, I am learning a deeper level of unconditional love, forgiveness, and all of those things. And it's going to bring me to the level that I desire to be at in my life. And that's why I'm putting myself through this process. So as you're saying this, I'm also, when I blink, sometimes I'm really taking in a lot of information too.
Yeah. I was watching your energy field going, so I just had to say something. But, this is the other piece too, though, the suffering piece, right? There is a path. And I truly believe that there's a lot of the Christian church stuff has come into play with this, suffering for your sins and all the stuff, right? That actually has imbued the spiritual community as well. And there's this whole thing of, you've got to suffer for your progress, right? For your enlightenment. And, do you sometimes have to face hard things? Yeah, you do. But suffer, cocoa bop is not the path, right? We talked about that. There's a community that we used to go to a lot for festivals and events and things. And it was all the path of suffering. It was suffer, cocoa bop. How much can you go into your pain and deal with it and whatever? And, there are different paths. I mean, Kathy used to run a program called Gate. It was a retreat system. And she and the partners that she worked with on that she had to try and convince them for years to go a different path. She was like, let's do the path of joy. Let's stop doing suffer, cocoa pop, right? And they found that when they did the program around joy, it was actually the hardest thing that anybody had ever done. It was a hugely impactful process, but it was all about joy, right? And I think that that's part of the thing, is that we learn how to master our suffering in our childhoods, right? We really have made friends with our suffering. We have, engaged it. We have befriended it. We have mastered how to navigate through it. And it becomes a partner with us on our journey. And that oftentimes we engage our enlightenment process through that lens of the partner of suffering, right? And it's not necessary, right? I mean, it's necessary. So I have a friend of mine who used to say to me all the time, she said, pain is required, suffering is optional. And I love that, right? Pain is, what the catalyst is to get you to do whatever the next thing is. Suffering is being attached to the pain, right? It's like falling in love with and becoming attached to the pain and identifying with the pain and saying, oh, feel bad for me because of the pain, and, all of this, right? There's so much that we put into that suffering. And if you want to really understand what I'm talking about here, go back to Spirit Sherpa's episode on the victim in the misery box, and you will really get a full view of that. Okay. But then that's Spirit Sherpa, not Spirit Guides. So that's my other podcast. But what I'm going to say is that when we can release the suffering, when we can stop believing that the path has to be hard, that's when it becomes easier. I remember doing an event where Kathy pinned me to the wall on something in front of a room full of people. She was like, I'm tired of hearing you say this. We're going to do this work right now. I'm like, okay. And she pinned me to the wall on it, and I did the work in front of the group. And somebody walked up to me at the end, and they were like, I didn't realize. Now, this is somebody who used to fall on the ground literally and not be able to move when she was processing. I watched her do this on multiple occasions where she just was wallowing on the ground in her pain. And that's how she knew how to process. That's what she knew would work for her. Right? So no shade on that. Just, hey, this is the path that works for me. But she watched me go through this, and she's like, I didn't realize it could be easy. And I'm like, well, it's not easy, but it's not, super painful, and, I've got to be a mess for days, right? If you're willing to let it go, if you're not attached to it, if you're not attached to the loss of it when you release it, if you're not attached to, being able to control it afterwards, then, the letting go process doesn't have to be difficult. It's our attachments to it that make it hard, right?
And that's what I was going to say. So much of it is, what I'm dealing with in my personal life. It's, this is the crossroads. I think that those of us on a certain journey, we have to come to eventually, because, to be able to hold space on the deeper levels for people, we have to be able to acknowledge this and move through it within ourselves. So, it is what it is. And it's, it's funny because right now I'm having not trouble. My guides are actually very clear. They're like, be comfortable not knowing. I was like, yay. That lesson.
Fucking hate that.
I fucking hate that lesson. But, the lesson, they're like, the lesson, what they're telling me is, drop into the feminine, learn unconditional love for those who have hurt you, and be able to create harmony within the relationships that you have, right?
Yeah.
To be able to move through that. And I use a 6-point system that actually Cassie created on this, and it's about forgiveness, recognition, appreciation, nature, compassion, and equality, right? And using those six words and 6 concepts to move through this. And it's a process.
Okay, so we'll do a whole episode on that later, because I can hear people going, oh, tell me about that. We don't have time for that on this episode, but we will do another episode on that soon. So, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, that's where I'm at. My brain went boop again.
Yep. Okay.
Popped right off.
Yeah. So, coming back to the, is there a fast track? Combining your energy work and your personal growth work is a way to accelerate your process. Learning how to surrender to your guides and to allow them to work with you and through you. This is one of the hardest things that I did. I spent, years telling my guides to go fuck themselves. It's just like, nope, I'm not doing that. Nope. So, but the faster you learn how to listen to your guides and take their advice, go figure, the faster your life gets better. It's amazing how that works. But,
I remember texting you or sending you messages. I was like, you ever feel like you're just like a fucking pawn down here on some universal chessboard, and you're getting moved around, and you just said that in the sweetest voice, you're like, oh, honey, I get it.
I do.
I get it.
I do get it. I do. Yeah. So, but once you start to work with them and you realize that they're actually on your side and not just moving you around like a pawn, then, life gets easier. It really does. And, doing the work to release all of the bandwidth stuff, and that life gets a lot easier with that. Dealing with the trauma in your body and working with your parasympathetic nervous system to deal with that makes life a lot easier. Doing the vagus nerve resets and things like that. And then, in terms of enlightenment, once you get past the initial stages, is very much about awareness and presence. And so, it's learning to be where you are and not worry so much about the future. That was something that I got hit with yesterday. Kathy and I were talking about the new, stuff that we're bringing out in the business and working with business, people who are doing spiritual work. And, I keep trying to set up some stuff to make that go faster. And she was just like, how about you just be with what is and see what shows up? And I had I'd done a reading for myself earlier this week where I was talking about where I was asking about this, and the card that I drew was the feminine. I was like, okay, yeah, I know how to do this. I should probably do this, right? And so, I've been releasing, I've been letting go, and I've been being with what is, right? And so I'm having a conversation in 10 minutes with a friend of mine who I expect will give me the next piece, and I will just be with what is, right? And I'm just gonna be like, okay, what do I have to do right now? And what was funny is that I've been wanting to get some work done on this project, and I went to I host a spiritual coach mastermind once a month, and there was a woman that had offered to do the initial, give some piece of content at the beginning. And what she did was some astrology. And what she said was, because we we're just coming out of Mercury retrograde, because this is the 29th of August. So yesterday was the day after Mercury went direct. And so she was like, you should be just cleaning stuff up right now. And, not trying to do something new and not trying to da-da-da-da-da, right? And that's true until the 2nd of September. And I was like, well, that's good, because I spent the entire day doing nothing but clean up little bullshit stuff. I'm like, oh, this isn't working. That isn't working. Let me fix this. Let me fix that. Da 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 da. Because we've just switched our systems in the back end for everything, and so some of the tech has been challenging, especially during Mercury retrograde. So I was going, okay, Mercury's out of retrograde. I can fix this now, right? So, all of these things are, when you're listening to the messages, right? You listen to the messages, and they often will come to you the same message over and over again, because the universe, that's how it talks to you. It's like, okay, I'm going to show this to you once. Okay, I'll show it to you again. I'll show it to you again. I'll show it to you again. Maybe I'll whack you upside the head with a clue by 4, because you're not listening, right? So you get far fewer clue by 4s the more you listen. So I'm not a fan of the clue by 4. I am a very, very experienced person of the clue by 4. I've had a lot of clue by 4s to my forehead, and I try not to get them anymore by listening. So that's another acceleration tip, is listen to your guides so that you don't get the spiritual clue by 4 to the forehead. Yeah, and so letting go and not trying to control the outside world, and allowing and really believing that the universe is conspiring to help you. Okay? That's my best advice for the fast track. These things together will get you there. And, I've been doing this for 50 years. And so I've had my time to wallow, and, I have done my wallowing, in my pain. Wow. When I was like 13, I remember giving myself a full day to wallow in my pain. And I just laid down on my bed and, right, because I've been studying this stuff since I was 5. So, at 13, I'd been in for a while, and I was still in my super wallow. So, the nowadays the wallow is as much time as it takes me to get over the shock of it, and then I'm done. And then I'm like, okay, shock is done, moving on. So sometimes it's a 2-minute wallow, and sometimes it's a 20-minute or a 3-day or, whatever, where I'm trying to get past it, right? But the faster you can get past the wallow and into the, letting go and releasing and allowing and being with and all the things and looking at your own stuff and all of that, the faster it goes.
That's where that harmony piece came in for me. It's like the wallow led me to deeper recognition. And I explained a lot of this in the Kundalini episode, it took me deep into my own shit, like a pig wallowing in his own shit. I was like, okay, you are the creator of your reality. What are you putting out there that is
right
in this way? And sometimes we have to wallow in that place, and it's not a bad thing, right? It's a place of deeper level recognition of who we are and who we want to become, and it's from that place we make exacting changes, because we don't want to continue. That's what we do, is pattern recognition. We help people recognize patterns because we recognize the patterns within ourselves, and we change them.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing, which is stepping out of self-judgment. Because so long as you are judging yourself, you are holding yourself in the still place of what you're judging yourself for. So you're sticking yourself in the place that you're judging yourself for. That's you're resisting changing it. So the faster you can release the judgment of yourself, the faster you can actually make progress.
This is where that observer piece really comes in handy, when you can step outside of yourself and just see the actions and not be attached to the pain that you've created for yourself and for others, right? Like you can just step outside and be like, okay, that is an operating system that I have ran for, since I learned it in childhood. And that is okay. Now we have a great outside look with no judgment, and we can, work on changing this from the inside out. So, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think that's what we've got for this week. Thank you for listening. We are so grateful for you to be here. And don't forget, what you focus on is what expands, what you intend is what you create. So choose wisely.
So that's it for today's episode of Spirit Guides Podcast. Head on over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on iTunes will be entered into a drawing for a $10,000 value grand prize and a private reading with Kelle Sparta herself. Be sure to head on over to spiritguidespodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Kelle's gift and join us on the next episode.